What's going on, everybody out there in the world? Here we are on planet Earth, watching the charts drop, watching the charts pump. What's it going to be? Is Pulse going to do the 14,000X? Or is it going to go to zero tomorrow? The world may never know. But the technical indicators are saying up. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Markable was running a little bit late, so I had the key on the Mr. Consistent himself, Crispy Man, to join me. He popped in. He's sitting around waiting in the back here for me to pull him up. Crazy couple days for the hex price, huh? And man, we covered a little bit of that last night on the DGen Roundtable with Rags2Riches and Crispy, Zenith, and Chocolate Taints. And if you didn't get a chance, please go back and watch that episode. It was a really solid one with a lot of really good high detail and information on the Bitcoin cycle, Ethereum, the ratios, Pulse, EHEX, PHEX, Inc. So it was. Make sure you go back and check that. We'll probably try and recap a lot of that here today. And hopefully, with any luck, we'll see Rags2Riches join us here in a little while. He said he had a call, and then he might join us in a bit. But yeah, looks like Markable just shot in here too. So I'm going to bring up Chrissy, man, and Markable. How's everybody doing today?
Hey, Crispy, you're muted again. Maybe it's for the best. You can stay muted for the entire stream like that.
Did you hear that?
We got it.
Moving my lips.
Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, Crispy Man had to come in and save you, Mark. You were late again.
Yeah.
The time difference, it just screws me up, man.
Yeah, it always is a weird thing. But hey, I'm here. And Crispy is always there to save the day, so it's all good.
Oh, I don't have to stay, Markable. I don't want to take your place. Nobody can replace you, man.
I heard there's a party because Rags is also coming. So they
man. He might show up here in a little bit. We'll see. Maybe in like a half hour or something. We'll see him pop in.
Did you bring the snacks?
The snakes?
No, the snacks.
I'm alive for sure.
What do you got? I gotta hear what's your thoughts, Mark, on the last couple days of action? I don't know if you got a chance to watch the DGen Roundtable stream from last night. You're probably sleeping. I
just watched it today.
Okay.
Well, I just also posted my first video on my own YouTube channel, and that basically summed it up. It's just everyone's freaking out, which is kind of funny because it happens all the time. And the only thing you can really do is just sit there and think, "Huh, that's interesting," and just watch the emotions. Because what I also said in that video, when you look at the data and then you look at the emotions, it's basically what you use in the charts as well. Like the charts is basically the depiction of emotions, and then the indicators are more of the data. That's how I would see it. And the same way you can look at how things on the blockchain show you, like the data that's on there. You can just go to apex.win, for example. You can just look at data, and then you see that it tells a completely different story than all the emotions that you see around. And that's kind of like a bullish divergence in that sense, where the data is very positive, but all the emotions are very negative, which then indicates that probably it's a good time to buy. And it's just interesting because when you explain it to people, or when you show it to people, or just even talk about it, people get angry, or people don't hear it. And you can show the statistics, but most people don't really feel statistics. Let's say they don't really. Like people see numbers, but they don't really feel what that means on a deeper level, and that hurts a lot of people in the long term, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to remain logical when everyone's screaming. It's like having a wife that keeps hammering you every day for everything you do, and it kind of knocks you off balance after so long of holding strong, you know. But yeah, I mean, those that are strong are here. Is there any data in particular you wanted to take a look at today that maybe Crispy could provide us? He does have a giant data warehouse in the back.
I like to be surprised by Crispy, but really the only thing I really look at is the amount of stakers going up, and if it is, then everyone that's saying staking is dead is just lying, because the statistics literally tell you that there's more people in the system constantly.
Yeah.
Mm.
On the
And it's-
PHEX side?
No, yeah, on the EX side, I actually saw on the Apex upwind that it's curving down a little bit. But that's, yeah. I mean, that's to be expected, I guess. We got a 60x per T-share payout yesterday.
Yeah, it was a 339% APY yesterday because of the 60 hex per T-share payout. Crispy, do you want to speak to that a little bit about divergence across the two chains and how this might kind of play out in the next few months in terms of APYs?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're definitely going to see new highs in payouts and payout per T-share for the Ethereum side. And yeah, so I expect to see that trend continue. I do expect to see staking drop very significantly on the EX side. And yeah, I mean, there's been a change, right? So, and I may not be super popular with this idea, but for me, in the short to midterm, EX has become more of a speculative play. In that, yeah, price can go all over the place, right? With low liquidity and the units out there, and so there's definitely that play. But
I got to argue that point. There's a lot of liquidity on the Pulse chain for EHEX.
Sure,
if you want it.
Yeah. You can
Also got to argue the point of. If the yield, if you can get so many damn units down here at these prices, and you can stake them on ETH, it becomes profitable again.
For certain types of people that can get those kind of units, sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the lower it goes, the more you could get. Theoretically, it's going to be. Yeah, I know you know where I'm going with this. It's like it's going to be an inverse curve of all the opportunity is going to be in getting units and not price appreciation. So there's still profitability there for the guys that are willing to accumulate. Eventually, that's going to absorb all the damn supply, and then eventually you'll set a floor somewhere, and price is going to go up. At the very least, it's going to ride up with Pulse and PulseX Inc. and PHEX because of that bonded liquidity over there on the Pulse chain.
Sure. I can see that. I mean, I'm not, with my particular stakes that I have over there, I already shared with this, publicly, right? I took a look at everything I have, and I had done that before, right? Because I had the forks, right? So, I mean, the reason, well, I didn't know what was going to happen with EX for sure, right? So I kept both sides. I didn't migrate to one side or the other. But even had I wanted to migrate everything, I couldn't, right? I mean, even with looking at my ladder, as I shared last night, I only had two stakes that I could even bring out that would have any value, and it's because they were shorter stakes, and that's because of the spike in the gas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it is certainly a fine mess, and I think unit wise, you're right. I mean, there's opportunity there, but it's distinctly different now in my head as far as how I would accumulate short term or medium term yield or rewards as a smaller player. That's all.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
really a difference of approaching things. Like for people that were before the fork, it's a completely different strategy than people knew, I guess.
Yeah, I'm with you that you need to be we need to be out here protecting people as well. Like if you don't have a huge bag of PulseX, Inc. or PHEX, you shouldn't be buying EHEX right now. You should be focusing on
100%,
on those things 100%. Now, if you already have weight in the system, you can start to play the EHEX game, which is like expert mode. I would say it's like expert mode hex. Like you don't really want to play that game if you're new, because that game is very volatile and there's a lot of unknowns at this point, at this juncture.
Yeah.
And the game has changed where you need to have tens of millions of hex in order to play the staking game properly to win.
Yeah.
So if you're not in that position, do not mess around with EHEX. there's a good chance that you'll be able to exit your EHEX bags, your stakes, down the road in profit. Now over the bull market, it remains to be seen, but the ones farther out, like 3 years and beyond, I still think there's runway. So don't go EESing your stack. There's going to be meat on the bone for you guys there too. I think the turmoil really is going to be in this next year to year and a half until that Ethereum gas upgrade comes online. And that's kind of why Richard pushed so hard for the Pulse chain. No comments on those ideas?
No.
Well,
Pretty. Yeah.
I have a comment on it. I guess it would because we talked about this too, right? So just looking at right now, stakes that are ending, I think Richard stepped in as strongly as he did. I didn't like it, of course, right? I don't like the idea, but he did to control the gas price. But I think he came in so hard with it to make it really crystal clear for maybe some of our smaller, folks. So listen, you need to be working on Pulse Chain. And that's what you just said, just a different way. And why? Because it may be, let's say we all think, well, we all don't think there's going to be a run up, but there appears to be a potential run up on ETH, right? And if it was to double or triple, it's quite possible, the next months, the coming months, it's quite possible that people on EHEX wouldn't be able to end 90% of their miners, never mind that they can't, end 50% now. And so continuing to put people into that shredder would be bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you saying it.
I have something I want to bring up. Like, let's talk about hypotheticals for the maximum gas output this cycle on the Pulse chain, just for, take the counter or contrarian take on this. Let's see if I can pull this up. You guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the Ethereum gas. Let me refresh so we get a fresh calculator. This is how much it costs to end a day one stake right now. $744 to end a day one stake. So unless the value inside that stake is $1,400 yield or more, I would say it really wasn't worth it for you to stake it till today and take it out right now at this very time where GUE is around 50. ETH is at 4K. Let's go into the future a little bit. Let's say ETH goes up to 8K, 2X. That now costs $1,500 to end that 1,500 day stake. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that's going to be taken away from smaller hex players. So they're basically going to be priced out. This is basically, people are going to hate me for saying this. This is basically Zen or Titan X 2.0 or 1.0 is the fact that you just can't get your hex stakes out profitably. Like Hex, Zen, and Titan X all suffer from ETH gas fees being out of control in this case. Now, even if it was just like a 6 or 7, let's say a 700-day stake, which would have been about half the amount of time, and we get a doubling in price of ETH, you're still looking at $700 end stake. It'd be about half at current prices. You're looking at $340. So unless you're dealing with tens of millions of EHEX, the staking game on the Ethereum chain is not for you currently. I still definitely see opportunity for kind of more advanced crypto guys to buy EHEX on the Pulse chain side when it does make new lows, because it's great for trading right now. It's actually like a trader's wet dream with the volatility. And there's LP plays to be had there, but that's not who I'm speaking to right now. I'm speaking to the level 1 players that are basically needing to come to Pulse chain to get exposure to, if they're looking to get into hacks, that's where they want to play the game.
Yeah, if you really want to go stake, then you should definitely do it on Pulse chain. But the idea is, and that's the funny thing, is that everyone is freaking out about so much. Said, all of a sudden, EX is worthless in a lot of people's minds. But like, it always has a ratio, and you can still do stuff with it. I mean, you can do different things than just stake. Like, if you just want to stake, sure, do it on the Pulse chain, please, because look at those fees. It's crazy. And that's actually, I like the movement that a lot of people are now taking their EHEX to Pulse chain, which already happened, but now in bigger volume. I really like seeing that, because then you can actually hold a better ratio, I think, and keep it alive. Let's say you can even just keep it alive with the hope that maybe at some point ETH fees are going down, because you never know.
There's
That's a good meme.
There's actually supposed to be an upgrade coming. It's maybe mid or end of next year that reduces ETH gas fees by 90% on the layer 1 level.
90%.
Yeah, it's a 10x decrease or 90%.
Okay, but also, okay.
So that $700 end stake is going to be $70 instead.
But does that apply to the S-load function as well then?
Yes.
Okay.
That's information I got from DCC. So that is coming.
Right.
But then that means that's also good for Pulse, because Pulse will also receive that upgrade, which will make it even cheaper. So Pulse will still be cheaper. But I did want to bring up a point here, which was a couple things. So number one is there's still 4.6 billion. This is like almost doubled. There was like 2.2 billion EHEX on the Pulse chain bridge. Now there's 4.6 billion. That's good, because if more of that LP gets binded to those main core coins, it's gonna drag EHEX up with it as
sure.
Pulse performs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me show you something real quick. I hate to keep harping on it, but I think some people might need to see this in the chats to understand exactly what we're talking about. So this is this little end stake calculator I put together over the last few days, just to show this. Now, keep in mind, AXiS just showed us the cost of ending a day 1 stake. It was a little higher than the estimate that I have here, and this is the point that I was trying to get at. Is this what I'm showing you on the screen is using a lower gas fee, because it fluctuates all day long, where the gas fee is, and I'll show you the list of detailed stakes. So what I did here, I went into my little dashboard and said, show me all the stakes that are ending between now and the end of the month. Right. But show me only the ones that are 1,563 days or longer, using your number that you had up there. And the calculation at the time I last ran this was about $730 for the miner. And so I know that a lot of us were shocked by Richard coming out with what he said, but here's the TLDR on this, right? So I look at those stakes. There's 24 of them. So there's not that many that are coming out between now and today. Only one of them has a value that's greater than the gas cost at $700.
Whoa.
So take this and double it. Nobody who has an older stake is getting out, right? And so I think because listen, I had the wrong message. I don't say wrong message. I was still in the camp of continuing to build my ladder until I saw this, right? And I actually took his hint and went and looked at the data, quote unquote, that he said he was looking at, or that others said he was looking at. And yeah, I mean, he's trying to give people a preemptive, hey, listen, you need to look at this a little bit differently, guys, because otherwise you're going to be sending money into the validators for no reason. Now, surely there are miners with lesser days that can get out, right? So it's not that. There is liquidity there, et cetera. But it is a big shift in focus for sure.
Yep. So I think, to be fair, let's take that contrarian side here, and let's look at. That's very good data, by the way. How many people are underwater, like in these conditions, and how many more will be underwater and on a 2x in ETH price, and any increases in gas fees on top of that compounds the effect exponentially. It's kind of crazy. So maybe EHEX then is a glorified meme for this cycle, and we'll get into why that could be by showing you guys ETH Classic Cycle 2 price action versus Ethereum later on here in the show. Something that I showed last night on the DGen roundtable, but you can never show good data like that enough. So, but here, let's do a hypothetical. Richard's talking a lot about 14,000x pulse price, which would put us roughly around 38 to 46 cents, depending on whether you're measuring from the day 1 candle body close or from the double bottom low after the SEC crash. So I'm going to give you the higher number, which is like around 46 to 48 cents. So this is going to give us, let's see here. I wish this slider was a little more clean so I could actually get the exact number I want. dip catcher, but it's going to give me 48. So if we get a 48-cent pulse, that's a 14,000x, and gas stays where it's at today, and you ending a 1,500-day stake, you're still looking at a $656 end stake fee. So the problem hasn't been solved. The problem has just been pushed further out into the future.
The can has been kicked.
The can has been kicked down the road. That's
Which, to be fair, the entire world's economics is based on kicking a can. So we're doing pretty good.
So what we can hope for is that ETH fixes their gas fees sometime before Pulse does a 14,000x, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be transporting our hex stakes onto another chain in the future, which is not something I want to be around for, to be honest with everybody. Like, I don't want to be around for that. Like, we got into hex because it was supposed to be the answer, the solution in a lot of ways. And so I think it will be. I think it's just going to take time for the upgrade to come through, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, it needs a 14,000x. I mean, yeah. By then we'll see how we solve it. Then I think Richard also said, well, then we just fork it again. I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, what you said, if there's an update that comes for 99 or 90% less gas fees, even that is also just kicking the can down the road. So until when, I don't know when you're gonna have a full solution for the entire thing.
Yeah. Well, this was a good time to bring in Rags2Riches. Welcome in, buddy.
What's up? What's up, guys?
Dude. So we were just talking about gas stake end fees, or end stake gas fees. Sorry, got a little bit ahead of myself there. And we were looking at the Ethereum chain and what it costs to end right now for like a day one stake. It's like around $700.
Yeah.
And if ETH doubles in price, it's like 8K. I'm sorry. If ETH doubles in price to 8K, it's $1,400 to end. Obviously, it's a 2x. And then you could assume that maybe, if prices are going parabolic, the GUE is going to go up, so it would compound that even worse. And then we looked at, okay, well, you and I were just doing some math on if Pulse does a 14,000x, what does that price end up on? It's somewhere between like 38 to 46 cents or so.
Yeah. And
what would gas fees be in that situation? And it was the same problem, right? Because it's the same network with the same problem, and you get back to $700 end stake fees to end a stake. Now, do you onboard the next 5 to 10 million users during that 14,000x run? And does everybody kind of have decent sized bags to handle those gas fees at that point? And then how long does it take for Ethereum to reduce the gas fees by 90%? They're saying like middle end of next year, so we don't really know. But what are your thoughts on these kinds of ideas of, how much runway does Pulse really have before it falls into the same fate? And like, how do you see this kind of playing forward?
I mean, we're going to L2 it up. We're going to create some liquidity pools in the L2, wrap that hex and end stake over there, buddy. I mean, Richard just gave us the playbook in his tweet this morning, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, we're going to L2 it up. That's what's going to happen. And because there's going to be some intrepid entrepreneur out there that wants to launch an L2 on top of Pulse Chain. So that's going to happen, I think. A lot of different ways to get around it, but it's a big problem. It's always been the problem. Is he going to fork it? Don't know. I think he'll L2 it. And part of the reason that we did what we did with Pulse Chain and copying Ethereum was to use the brain power of all those Ethereum folks that are focusing on these problems. So it's going to work out probably best for us if you think about it. Because we don't have to have a staff of 200 devs, or what the Cardano guy said, 150 full-time developers right now on Cardano.
Unbelievable. That's
and
crazy.
I'm like, what do they do? What's going on? So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
Keep it running.
Keep it running. Right. They're firefighters. Firefighters.
Yeah.
They're running around in a hamster wheel, and when they stop, the chain stops. So keep running.
Somebody said Pulse Chain L2, aka pacemaker. So yeah, man. That's what it's gonna look like.
Maybe this is a dumb idea, but since Ethereum at some point increased the S load function, and that's why the XTX got so much more expensive, can't we just take that away again on Pulse Chain? Or is that not how that
Sure,
works?
sure, but then you open up yourself to the vulnerability they were trying to close.
Yeah.
Because they're spamming. And so, yeah, you're right, though. There might be a technical solution that might be a change in the future that actually makes it cheaper. But I think, like Rags is saying, maybe the L2 is the route, you know?
It's probably safer.
What if Richard comes up with a centralized exchange on Pulse Chain, which he has talked about before, and then he could do something where you move those stakes over the centralized exchange and it's settled within his liquidity pools. There's kind of interesting. Still going to be done on chain, but what are your thoughts on that, Crispy?
Yeah. Because you made me think of something else that I'd thought about there, Brandon. So I know this is like completely made up. What if the future is a hex chain that only contains hex?
Sure.
And because of interoperability, it works. Whether that's, and maybe that's what you mean by when we talk about L2, where hex is its own chain. It's just that it's interchangeable with other chains based on the new technology coming. I mean, shoot, we still aren't at exactly, real clean interoperability, but we're getting close, right? I mean, I remember when I couldn't get to different networks.
Yeah.
Without doing something special or bringing down special software. And now I can move across 5 or 6 of them super fast, right? Without going to a centralized exchange. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, anyways, it just kind of prompted me to think about that. That would solve the S load problem, perhaps, particularly if it's kind of a closed garden of only hex being on that.
See, there's going to be some intrepid entrepreneurs who are going to open up a SEX, and everybody on Pulse Chain is going to go after him. They're going to try to destroy him for that too, by the way. So interesting.
I mean, it'd be nice to have like a direct on ramp. It's disingenuous just to complain about ETH fees and then go buy 170,000 ETH, and then in addition to that, act like you don't need ETH to get into Pulse Chain. To get in and off, it's like, come on, guys. Like, Coast is down or whatever, banking license. We need a direct on ramp, or better ones. If you want to make the most money ever in this whole game, you get a banking license, you start a centralized exchange, and you start accepting deposits. That goes direct to Pulse Chain. That guy that takes fees to near zero, and just lives on margin. That's going to be the next big brainiac on Pulse Chain. And there's that opportunity is rife. Like, whoever wants to do that work and make that a reality is going to get. It's gonna be they're going to be so far ahead of everybody else. It's going to be crazy. Now, Coast is trying to do it, but they're running into troubles of their own. And how long does it take? Yeah.
Well, and you just a quick blurb on that. They are close. They have 2 new banking partners. They 2 of them. So there's a backup. And I believe what I've read is the paperwork's been signed. They're just waiting for the integrations to be done, and then that'll be up. But yeah, I applaud them for taking the challenge, right? I mean, they are hardcore community members to start with, and have the best intention, I believe, to get that up and running. And we're working in a world. Remember, guys, out there in banking, they don't want us to do this. They don't want you to do it, and so they're trying to stop it. Any way they can, and so you don't know what's going on with this politics back end. But yeah, I'm hopeful that Coast and will do its thing, and that other competitors will come up. You are beginning to see other bridges, right? There, we got the Spark Swap bridge up. Not we, but I mean somebody got it up, and anyways.
So Coinbase, their initial business model was through a wallet, and they made money off fees, and then initially they started adding Bitcoin to that in terms of a centralized exchange, and they partnered with who? They partnered with Circle. Then after a while, they acquired Circle. So it'll be kind of be interesting to see, are there if Richard's going to launch his wallet, is it going to have something to do with that? Is it going to follow a similar path? Or maybe the internet money guys have some big plans one day. You just never know, but it's going to happen. Whether it's now or sometime in the future, I mean, the opportunity's here, and that vacuum will be filled sooner than later.
Yeah, well, you guys are all so young. You probably don't even remember, how we used to. Well, I don't want to use the wrong word. How we used to get music for free, and everybody was getting music for free and downloading it, and that became a big thing. And then of course the DOJ stepped in and shut everybody down. And lo and behold, a few years later, all of a sudden they have all these businesses that you can now download, and pay your fees and blah blah blah. But at that moment in time, it was like, nope, downloads are dead. They weren't dead, but that's what was going people's mind. They were thinking that it's dead, never going to get free music again.
How can we apply that thinking to this situation more directly?
Well, I think we see some people in the chat talking about DeFi folks taking risks. Yes, entrepreneurs are going to continue to take risks and try to win until one of them makes it.
Yeah,
right,
I like that.
and then it'll be that guy or lady will blaze the trail, and all of a sudden all this stuff is interoperable. Maybe maybe it comes in the form of Musk, doing what he's talking about doing, with the single platform for all finances with X. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe it's some other founder we don't like a whole lot. I don't know, but somebody is going to break the dam eventually, because people are going to keep trying to hit it, because there's opportunity there.
The opportunity is when you control other people's assets. Unfortunately, we live in a world today where I think that these big institutions, they're going to want to issue paper against other people's crypto and just have you trade in and out of that. You actually don't own it. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, we're all susceptible to that right now. So the unfortunate thing is the fortunate thing is Pulse Chain, at that point, I've got no indication that it's going to succumb to that as quickly as others, because we do have Richard who would push back on that sort of thing, I think. So, yeah.
Maybe it's a good point. Like some of the chats right now going on about just like the state of like EHEX and how we could compare it maybe to like ETH Classic here. Bitfinesse, nice to see you, buddy. Haven't seen you in a while. How that kind of plays out. We did it last night. I'll just do it briefly again, just to give these guys an idea of kind of where my head's at with that. And I think we make a good case for why it like EHEX isn't dead, and that the price performance. I don't want to. Again, I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's worth noting that ETH Classic did do really well, 2 cycles in a row. So.
Yeah, well, as you get started, I'll just say this too, is that many of the people that I know that are larger players in EHEX, they just bought the dip. So at least in terms of like crypto, yeah, people are still buying.
All right, what's the quick and dirty on this? The green line is ETH Classic, the white line is Ethereum, and this is from the point of the DAO fork. Where the DAO hack happened and they forked ETH into Ethereum, and then there was ETH Classic was left over. ETH Classic was still the real ETH at the time, and you could see it overperformed off the fork date, and then it crashed a lot, minus 80%. Meanwhile, ETH that we know and love, proof of work ETH, didn't really do much. It just kind of went flat, and then it crashed 53%. Over the course of the next year or so, ETH Classic actually overperformed ETH for a majority of the cycle. It wasn't until the very end of the cycle where ETH kind of picked its head up and finished off strong. The net here is that ETH Classic went up 16,000% over 386 days, and ETH went up 20,500% over 404 days. So you could use this as an example of like, well, how could we liken this to the EHEX, PHEX thing? And is EHEX going to perform this cycle? I believe it will, because of the bond liquidity, because it's actually easier to see this kind of an outcome from ETH from the HEX situation, because they're more alike than they are different, and really the only mitigating factor is the staking mechanism. In terms of like pumpability, they're equally as pumpable. Like and we already know that coins with dogs on them and coins with frogs on them, they don't have any intrinsic value, but they tend to go up too. So all these coins carry the same properties, like they're transferable, cross-border, and you can transact on them any time of day. That's just the blockchain inherent in them. And so, but then if you add in like any kind of future, if you try to price in any future upgrades in terms of like cheapening the gas fees on either chain, it's going to increase the value proposition of these coins because that T-share mechanism is so powerful. All right, so now that I can get off my soapbox, this is the second cycle for ETH Classic. You know, this from the COVID lows here, bottom left corner. Ethereum did a lot of the heavy lifting this cycle, and it pumped harder, faster, for longer, whereas ETH Classic and green kind of just shit the bed for 313 days and underperformed. But during this whole period of time, there was a subsection of the mining community that was mining ETH Classic the whole time, just waiting to send this thing at the end of the cycle with their Ethereum profits. And that's exactly what they did. And so if you captured the returns from the lows and you were patient and you waited the year and a half for this final 30-day run to happen, you could have realized a 4,337% return over 420 days, or roughly 44x. Or if you just didn't want to take the opportunity cost to wait all that time and take that risk, you could have just gotten ETH and then hopped some of your ETH gains into ETH Classic at the right point in the cycle and then rode that up for a quick 9.7x in 32 days. This is very meme coinish of ETH Classic at this point. And then also on the second top, right, the double bubble top, ETH ended up coming up a little bit higher than its top here, and it ended up doing 4,300% over 606 days. So it's funny that you got better returns on ETH Classic earlier in the cycle at the peak, at the first top, but Ethereum did catch up on the second top. But so there was opportunity costs both on the front end and on the back end for being in the wrong thing at the wrong time. So, use your own discretion in how you want to play these hexes, but I anticipate the hexes are going to have fun going in and out of in the ratios. So.
Why do you think Ethereum outperformed after that dip?
This is simply just because this was like a liquidity pump. So all this was an attempt by a smart cohort of users that absorbed all of that supply over that time to pump it up and then take in the exit liquidity that came in after from bots, from trading bots, from people buying these levels on the retracement, looking for higher prices. A lot of times bots and users tend to chase. So this was just an exit liquidity pump. Something to keep in mind that this is a risky game. And in terms of like why Ethereum pumped higher later, was because Ethereum is deemed the legit Ethereum, right? So that this one did, it pumped up on the extra leverage in the system and its bonded liquidity to Bitcoin, all other reasons as well. But yeah, the reason why I don't think ETH Classic pumped a second leg is because the juice was squeezed out of it, and everyone that wanted to take profit, that pumped it up to take the profit, were out by this point. So the altcoins had already topped. Sorry, this is why. It's because the altcoins had actually topped here. In Ethereum, I think you could consider a blue chip, so it actually had more power behind it and real demand. So a couple of different reasons there through in there, but yeah, that's why ETH Classic didn't get a second pump. Altcoins had already topped by that point.
When do you think, between like 2018 and now, or maybe even further back, 2015, 16, when do you think people with really big bags, institutional money, started really buying up the market at a large clip?
Perfect. Well, there's evidence that occurred on the COVID dip. Now, I think it goes back before then, but I think that's when the second wave of institutions came in. So let me pull up Glassnode here for a second, and we'll look at...
You sprung for it. Sprung for Glassnode.
Yeah, buddy. Look, we haven't seen these levels of... Look, Bitcoin on-chain, on-exchange balances peaked at the COVID dip. And so I think this is clear that this was the level where large players or institutions took their opportunity to buy up all the supply at that level and send it. Now, and you could see that because this orange line of Bitcoin supply went down from that point. Notice how there was another second leg of that here. Mm-hmm. Now let's look at Ethereum and see what we can discover about that one. So the same situation, but its supply kind of went flat at that level. But yeah, ever since the breakout I think this was the 12K push on Bitcoin back in 2020. That's when Ethereum started to see its levels drop. Now to the lowest levels it's been since 2015. So I think, Bitcoin accumulation is rumored to have started somewhere in 2013, 2014, potentially the 2015 bottom. And that might have been crypto native accumulation and maybe the very beginnings of TradFi. But I think a lot of the real accumulation actually occurred later on, probably, here when the CME launches here. So I think they bought a lot of supply at these levels, but you're seeing an increase in supply. But I think that they did kind of set the bottom here is what's rumored. But you could see a clear divergence here after COVID that the game was on. What do you think?
So if you scroll over to the right in 2022, that dip right there in exchange balances, do you know what event that correlated with?
Yep, the FTX crash, yeah.
Yeah, and also if you go back a little bit to March, I think.
Here.
There were two major events that coincided with Russia and Ukraine war, and it's rumored that a lot of the oligarchs knew that sanctions were coming from the U.S., and they started snatching up massive amounts of Bitcoin to hedge against those sanctions. In fact, if you go to wallets greater than 1,000 BTC, right around March, you had one of the probably almost the biggest increase, or maybe the biggest increase. Yeah, right there. Is that February, March of Bitcoin wallets that hold more than 1,000 Bitcoin right before the war started, right before they pushed into Ukraine.
Very interesting. That's new data for me. That's cool.
Yeah. Now, the other cool thing about this chart is you notice that by the time the market tops, in most instances, that's when you see those wallets crash. So if you go back to 2017, it's inverse, or right here on the chart, 2018 rather. See, it's inversely proportional. You go back to 2014, it's inversely proportional. And
2014 here.
Yeah, so I knew that we had something going on when we fast forward to today, 2024, and we saw that spike in those wallets. And we can really look at this to find out that, where the market's going. Because if those wallets start decreasing over the period of 3 to 6 months, that's something important to look at based on history. So,
do you think that this is my first time looking at this chart? Do you think that?
My opinion is they start getting out of the market
Yeah.
at the halvening. That's been my theory this whole time. And by the time the top comes, or the double top in this instance, that was just retail trying to push that up. It wasn't really supported by the big boys, it seems like. So
The second top, you mean?
Yeah, second top. So I think that they try to scale out at least 12 months prior and just take profits. It's the safe play.
So I'm gonna draw up a chart while we're talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna draw the logarithmic growth curve on Bitcoin. I'm gonna show you kind of what you're saying, Bitcoin with the Bitcoin halvings on there.
Yep.
And I'm gonna show you the hash ribbons. So like where things became profitable for Bitcoin miners, based on a 6 cent per kilowatt rate.
Yep.
Let's see here. Let's see if this kind of lines up with a lot of the data that we're providing here for people. I want it on the chart, dog. Oh, that ain't it.
Control Z is your friend.
You want to show when miners were profitable, AXiS, or what did you?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to find the right indicator. I had it up last night. Bitcoin production cost. That's the one. Okay. All right, cool. So what are we trying to show the people? We're trying to show the people that these are the periods where Bitcoin mining became unprofitable because either the price was too low or the hash rate was too high, or a combination of the two. And so we just got out of a mining profitability period. unprofitability period when we broke out at the $38,000 level. This is I think this is based on 6 cents per kilowatt hour. Let me double check to be sure. Okay, so this is based on an average cost of 5 cents per kilowatt hour. A lot of your industrial miners now are using things like natural gas or biogas mining, any kind of waste product that they can utilize to basically bring that cost down to 1 to 3 cents per kilowatt hour, so that this may not be totally definitive of when things are profitable or not, but based on the average at 5 cents per kilowatt hour, this was the longest ever Bitcoin mining bear market. It was 500 days long, and we just poked our head out of it. So one thing I like to do with this is like measure, okay, once we peek our head out of the unprofitability zone, how long do we have and how much runway do we have? So from this period here and for 2017 to the peak, you did a 17x over a year's time frame. And then again, here you did a 5x over 180 days. So half the amount of time for a third as much gain, roughly. And so then if you have to cut that down one more time, how many times does 5x go into 16x? 5 divided by 16, 30%. So you're getting looking at like 2.25x maybe, or
3.2x.
5x divided by 5 times 0.3, 1.5x from this level, from here. So you're looking at 150%, which would be, ironically enough, right around your $90,000 level, which is based on this data of when you come out of unprofitability into profitability, how much time you have. Now we're almost at that 180-day mark, which was just like the last time, and we're going into the halving. So what I'd like to see out of all this is a top soon, whether it's 85K or 120K. I'd like to see that happen soon, and then a retracement for a mid-cycle lull, and then a final blow-off in the end. And why I think that's possible is because Bitcoin ETFs are unprecedented. Record levels of buying are happening, and a potential with an ETH ETF on the horizon, it might give the whole space a second wind, either May, August, and potentially out to next year. So what are your thoughts on that while I draw this log curve out?
One of the theories that I had was when you look at the halving periods, you either right before or right after, pretty much like a 6-month window, you're going to see some sort of quote unquote substantial correction. I always wondered why that was. One of the theories that I had was they're trying to squeeze every bit of hash power out of their existing hardware before the halving starts, and then they have to dump Bitcoin to be able to replace the rest of the old hardware that they have with the new hash boards. That was one theory that I had. Obviously, profitability has a lot to do with this. If this chart doesn't convince you that Bitcoin miners run the show, I'm not really quite sure what does, because they have got so much overhead during a bear market. So I think that this makes quite a bit of sense. My top call is actually about 102 or 105 for this cycle, and I'm not changing it. It's very scary to keep that top call with the momentum that we're seeing right now on Bitcoin. One thing that I thought about too was all these people getting into Bitcoin. It's going to be, I think it might be a little bit different because these folks, they're just putting these things into ETFs. They're putting these things into IRAs, and it's not like they're going to go and market dump all these things that they have the technical ability to do that, or they have the time to watch all these things as close as they do. And really, it's actually a skill set thing. They've got the time. All of them are over the age of 55 for the most part. So I'm not sure if it's going to crash as hard because people don't have easy access to it. And there's penalties too to dump some of the stuff, tax penalties and otherwise. So it's very interesting. This is a very important cycle to watch for future ETFs on other things as well. And there's been a lot of paperwork filed for many different assets for this. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, so we have this log curve here. I mean, it's rough draw. It's not exact, but the main thing that you need to pay attention to here is the tops. And Crispy, can you fire up the GRM so we can come in with that here in a minute? Maybe look at where we're at on that.
Will do.
So let's zoom in now. So this is kind of, if we're looking, this is the reality of what we're looking at over the next like 5 years. Like, what could that really look like? Well, I mean, we could be seeing as high as like 60-70% move from here. That means that you're topping out like at your 105 target isn't too far off the top of this logarithmic regression curve. I mean, realistically, it's right there. It's at 120, which has been my number for what I thought we were going to hit last cycle. We never got there, but this one's looking like it's on pace to hit that within 2 months. Like, it could just print one more fatty and we're there. And then the question remains, offloading, how long, how much? I think we're going to get reduced downside volatility on this next wave down.
Yes.
And if we get any kind of inkling that, okay, let's just say August ETF for Ethereum, it would be cool to see something like this where we come up and top around that time, and then profits rotate into Ethereum, and then that marks the top, and then we get a mid-cycle crash that goes back and tests the previous all-time highs, and then we get a second double bubble move up to that 100. This is saying 170K, but if there's any shot of us getting to 240K, that's up here, and that would have to happen under different conditions. Like, and I don't know. Based on this curve here, last night it looked a little better, but based on this curve here, I don't know if I see that kind of playing out. That's Richard's call, right? So
Yeah.
this is saying that you'd get to that 160, 170,000 by, or like May of 2026 or September of 2026. So I don't know. It's
And that's already like a long time. So you're betting on that something is going to break in the historic pattern, basically. I'm wondering, what do you think about the ETH once it gets maybe its ETF? Do you think it's going to outperform Bitcoin in like, do we finally see a flippening? It's been said for so long, and yeah, it always feels due, but then it never happens. But now with the ETF, I mean, if Bitcoin tops out first, and after that you get an ETF, maybe that kind of rotates more energy from Bitcoin as well to Ethereum then, or something. What do you think?
I think it's I think we're going to see a lot of the Ethereum investment money get divested out into other layer ones, because
Yeah.
if in the event that there is a flippening, the flippening is probably for a minute, like a snapshot
exactly.
in time, and then it goes back, because technology is about pushing the ball forward, not running backwards. And by pushing the price of Ethereum up, you're not really doing anything useful. You're just repeating Bitcoin, store value with a few more extra functions that cost an insane amount to execute. So I don't know if there's, so I think a lot of that money, if it does flow into ETH, it's going to flow then immediately out. And what better example do we have than a giant sack wallet holding 170,000 of these things, maybe more potentially, to be able to bring that energy into a parallel chain and create this certain situation where for the first time we actually get this twin network model where there's Ethereum and there's Pulse Chain operating in sync side by side, reducing the load across any individual one, and they're working together to create a horizontal scaling solution to then of course in that condition, like a lot of the economic energy on ETH would disperse through to the Pulse Chain, and you get like a rebalancing effect. And what would make that happen is a big enough market maker to force the market in one direction, to create such good opportunities on the other parallel chain that you'd see economic energy flow out of need and necessity and progress. And I think that's kind of the setup. And if anything good happens in terms of winning this case, it's going to put Richard Hart's project front and center on that and become like the king of DeFi. So
Let me ask you something, AXiS, and whoever else. What do you think would have happened if Bitcoin had the ETF offering in its second or third cycle? And the reason I'm asking this, I'm asking you to draw the parallel to Ethereum.
Well, I think what does it make sense that it would be too early? Or do you think, what do you think?
Throw that aside. I mean, Ethereum, this is what? This will be its third full cycle. Am I correct in saying that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ethereum isn't nearly as heavy as Bitcoin was. And if Bitcoin had an ETF offering in its third cycle, would we have pushed past that high on that logarithmic curve? I think we probably would have if it was offered to Wall Street. So I think Ethereum is less dense. It's not much of as a Titanic as Bitcoin is, and it's going to be getting this much sooner in its life cycle than Bitcoin did. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if that's why JP Morgan said that Bitcoin or Ethereum is going to way outperform Bitcoin in 2024 and 2025.
It's also a contrarian play. Not to get too far off the question, but it's definitely a contrarian play for someone like Vanguard or for JP Morgan, somebody that didn't get enough exposure to Bitcoin down here to win back some of that market share by going through the Ethereum ETF route.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, combined also with how little there is as supply on the exchanges. That's a crazy statistic, by the way.
Yeah, this can't even be right, dude. It's saying, oh, that's the wrong chart.
1K, yeah.
Okay, that exchange balance. I'm like, oh shit.
That's how we make up statistics.
So this still is a pretty small number. It says 13 million. That's a pretty small number of Ethereum.
Well, that's why you're starting to see all these articles about the Ethereum ETF liquidity crisis, or the Bitcoin liquidity crisis.
I can exacerbate that a little bit with the on-chain data too while you're talking.
Yeah. So you guys are seeing this everywhere. Now, I always see these articles and I think to myself, are they just trying to get people to FOMO in like crazy? But I just have a hard time wrapping my head around these big boys wanting to crash the price again now that they have their names officially attached to this stuff. It would seem like they would want it to be a little bit less volatile to the downside.
That was what I was getting at earlier with this logarithmic chart for Bitcoin was that, the upside might be up here because it's an ETF, you overshoot a little bit, but ultimately your downside is going to get less every cycle. So I'm seeing 65 to 72% downside max on Bitcoin from the highs, wherever that tops out at. Maybe that's all-time high, just like it was here.
Yep.
Maybe that's what that looks like. You know, we should have gotten a taste of this level again. We never got it. That 30K level. We should have got another taste of that before, but the ETFs were too strong, man.
Well, the tops and the bottoms are going to condense potentially.
Yeah,
it's either tops and bottoms condense or we form a whole new curve and
we
bust through.
That's what so there is potential now with the ETFs for Bitcoin that actually it breaks it. So this is basically saying last cycle, if we would have just played the 2015 fractal out, we went up too fast too soon, created a double top. And now we're going too fast too soon relative to the 15 is the golden metric for a nice blow off top sequence. Look, we would have hit 140K in November of 21, mm-hmm. which is more normal for Bitcoin. So this cycle, we're kind of overshooting it a little bit, and maybe we do top out early and create another double top, but it's more extended with less downside volatility. But at some point, you'd like to think that we're going to bust out of this.
Well, it's compressed. Like this is human behavior compressed. So you can see it. It's squeezing. If we go back 8 years and we treat this like any other chart that we have in terms of a fractal, like that first move when it busts out could be violent. But it
doesn't seem like it's going to. I mean, look, if there's ever been a better setup, it's on the back of ETFs. So it almost feels to me, and this is something that we talked about before it happened, before we saw the volume, and it kind of is starting to affect my analysis a little bit, was that we were just going to see a diminishing volatility, where volatility was going to continue to get squeezed down until eventually it pops out the top.
Yeah.
Right?
How does I wonder how the Amazon logarithmic chart looks.
Yeah, let's look at that.
Because I like to look at that and compare that to Bitcoin.
Okay, let's do it.
Because of the growth. And it's 20 years worth of data.
You can don't let me forget to do that in just a second. I just thought that this historical volatility came to mind here. Yeah. Look, it's in a descending triangle, which means that volatility is about to break down which means that, yeah, we just stay stuck in this logarithmic curve for as far as like until 2030 potentially,
then it pops.
if this breaks down. And then at the end, you break out in the next cycle, which would be a big letdown for a lot of folks. But they're going to make it a good experience, at least up to like that 85K, 120K potential, something like that.
They
Okay,
want to
let's
keep
look
them
at Amazon.
around. And then the question is, once that runs out of volatility, what are they going to pitch people next? It's going to be the next best thing.
It's whatever they can't control that's going up that they'll
Right.
get into next.
Which they're probably already getting into that now, and we just don't know it.
We're going to pull up the logger after we look at Amazon. We're going to pull up the golden mean with Crispy here. It's a pretty good chart that shows us some cool little nuggets. So this is Amazon on the log growth chart, and let me just delete some stuff out. And you get the Bitcoin halvings on Amazon. Typically, it's been a good thing for them. Okay, so this is what we got. Now, percent returns, obviously, it's a little bit of a different situation.
That's steady.
Nice and steady. This is kind of what I would like to see Hex do. It's just nice and steady, parabolic, or not parabolic, just nice and steady up and to the right forever.
Amazon even has the big payday effect.
I actually have taken the X chart and put it on this multiple times. I've actually got tweets out there too, because I wanted to see what that would look like. But we've so far underperformed. I think the conditions are a little bit unpredictable. We're unpredictable in some ways with EHEX. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about how this could play out. Was there anything in particular you wanted to
Well,
look
I'm
at?
thinking about like, okay, maybe this marks the point where the Bitcoin chart starts mimicking this chart. All this other
Gotcha.
stuff was us plebs and dumb people creating the chart, and now these guys, this is that steady growth curve that they want to see, and they're controlling. It's very interesting. It's almost like it's an asset that they have that they can control the chart now. They just have to put money into it, I guess, like any asset on Wall Street. But Wall Street, I think there's a lot more accountability. Whereas if you have this, you treat it like a company. All you got to do is buy it to increase its valuation, which is wild, and everybody keeps buying it. So this is, sometimes I hear Gary Gensler say things, and I'm like, bro, he's right, man. This is the Wild West for a variety of reasons. But obviously, I disagree with him on many as well.
I think you're right.
So our chart is going to more closely resemble. It's less volatility, but it's steady growth. That's my idea from this point forward.
So you think something like this?
Yep.
Oh. Potentially, I mean, maybe a little bit not so up.
Yeah, like that. Something like that. Yep.
Boring.
I think much more boring, but steady.
Oh God, please no.
I think that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm scared
It's time
to
to
be in Bitcoin.
become grown-ups, AXiS.
But
No,
you
no,
got to
no.
understand that top, the top on this curve is it's misleading. It's very high. You got to understand that too.
Yeah, by 2035, Bitcoin at $500,000. Yeah, no, that's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, as Rags fucking always gets on, is like the dollar's getting debased. Like it's more that like all those like libertarian principles. Like, look, the dollar's getting debased, inflation's out of control. So like in 2035, when Bitcoin's $1 million, well, what's $1 million worth then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Dude, very good point. The question is too, like, how much impact does the DXY decreasing have on these charts as well? Makes them look really superstar. You know what I mean?
All right.
Just
It's interesting that I don't know if you've looked at the DXY on this, like, I'm sure, of course you have, on these massive time frames. But look, dollar's actually been increasing relative to other currencies now for like since 2008. It's been in this parabola, but it's at a breaking point, and this is where I think we could actually see the breakdown occur where this parabola actually breaks, which would lead into this Bitcoin supercycle effect.
Well, it's interesting. It's because the Wall Street. Okay, so COVID happens. Wall Street already knows what's going to happen. They say, okay, we got a lot of money coming our way from the United States government. And mind you, this is just one instance over many instances over many decades. And they say, okay, cool. We're going to get tons of stimulus, not only directly from the government, but also proxy because the government is going to give the citizens money, which then they're going to spend it with us. We're going to have all this excess money. You know what companies never do when they get excess money? They never give it back. They stack it. They stack it. They stack it. They stack it. And you have instances like this where the value of the dollar gets completely unloaded onto the market and decreases the value of the dollar very, 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 very quickly, because Wall Street has all this cash, all these reserves stacked up. Not only reserves, but think about this. A lot of these politicians right now in these election cycles are bragging that their states have the biggest surplus ever, and they're trying to take credit for that. It's federal government money that they gave to the states, and they're just stashing away. So everything is a bubble. It all comes to a head. And yeah, when you zoom out, it doesn't look too good for us over the next 20 years here in terms of the value of the dollar. Not good at all.
No, it doesn't. And that's why I would rather be in technology that's going to outpace any kind of downside fallout. You know, a lot of people, gold has been the option for a long time. Gold ETF comes online somewhere in here, roughly. And we saw how that kind of played out, you know, and that's still a good option for a lot of people. But is it really when you look at what Bitcoin's done? I don't know. I don't think it is.
It's certainly not. When you look at what Bitcoin's done, no. But when you look at what the dollar's done, yeah. There's an ascending priority.
Let's see
hierarchy.
Here. 5.2x versus the dollar's 40%.
Yeah.
Half an X, not even. Yeah. So yeah, I'd rather be in gold than a dollar, but I'd rather be in Bitcoin than gold.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be in a little even more speculative assets that have higher upside than that, even the game within the game within the game, so to speak. And that's kind of what we're all doing here, right? With Pulse Chain.
I don't think that there's nothing that can compare right now to cryptocurrency, and we're a very, very small percentage of the world's population that understands it. We're very fortunate, very fortunate.
So when it comes to time in this next cycle top, maybe we can pull up. Crispy, are you ready? Maybe we can pull up the golden mean ratio chart here, and we'll look at some data on this. I'm going to pull us off so we can really see this well. Do you want to break this chart down for us a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm losing my voice. No, I guess I can't do it.
All right.
I'll have to talk to it.
Let me see here. Vegas really wrecked Crispy, guys. So I'm going to apologize in advance for that. So what is this? What is this doing? Hey, can you click the with price button, and then we'll pull it down after that. I just wanted to explain what's going on here in that relationship. So this is the blue line is the Bitcoin price, and the purple line is the golden mean ratio. Basically, what this thing is telling, or golden ratio multiplier. What this thing is doing is it's trying to predict the tops of Bitcoin before you can predict the top of Bitcoin. And if you notice, so if you see these horizontal dashed lines, that's saying like the closer you get up to the red line at 1 is the closer you're getting to a potential top. And the way it's doing it is it's measuring it over the 350-day moving average, I believe. I think maybe it's oversimplified explanation of that. But as you can see,
2x, yeah,
the two times the 3. Okay, 2 times the 350, or 2 times the 350. Okay, so what does that mean? That means this purple line is basically going to predict when it's time to sell. In all cases, like. So look where we're at now. Okay, you can pull the price chart down now, and we'll just look at the golden ratio. I guess you can keep it up. Never mind. Leave it up. Sorry, I'm confusing the shit out of you. I was going to say, because then we could draw the correlations between them. But look at where we're at. This is simple. Okay, this is simply put, this is where we're between the 0.6 and the 0.7. And if you go back to 2016 on the left there, we oscillated in that range for quite a while before we broke out to the upside, and that's where Bitcoin went parabolic, was later there in May of 2017. And so I think what we're in currently is potentially, we're either going to see that kind of sideways action happen in this bounds or between the 0.7 and the 0.8. And that's where we're going to get our top around 85 to 120, 105. You could pick anywhere from 80 to 120. You're going to get a liquidity ceiling where we're going to get an influx of miner rewards dumped onto the market to try to make those guys whole and give them an opportunity to recapture new equipment at a higher hash rate, things of that nature. So it'll be what we'll define it a liquidity event that'll occur where there'll be a flush of new Bitcoins that comes onto the market. It's going to push the price down temporarily, and we'll get that sideways action. And then eventually we're going to come poke our head up and go hit that red 1.0 line later on, maybe in the next year or 2026. But this chart's like your golden chart because it allows you to see ahead of time where these tops are occurring. And I love this chart.
So once it crosses the 0.7, how many months does it take to get to that red?
In this last cycle, it was from December until May, I think, right?
January, February, March, April, 5 months. What about prior? Not the COVID thing.
It says April there, but so that would 5 or 6 months, and then the previous cycle.
Move it up a little bit. No, that's the 6.
Yeah, so from May of 2017 until December, I think. Wow.
5-6 months.
It actually topped, December. Yeah, so May to December.
So then if we were to take this, extrapolate that here,
right?
Where would we top out? 6 months from now?
Well, it depends on how, because we're still in that potential for a sideways period.
Correct.
Wherever we break the 0.7, because I actually think that because of the ETF money, we could actually break up into the 0.7 to 0.8 and do our sideways movement inside of there.
Yeah.
So one level up this time, and then we'll blow off like next year or 2026.
Fascinating.
Yep. If you want more awesome charts like this, go visit hexfire.io. It just got a new coat of paint, and Crispy's offering some services. This is one of his hidden charts, and you can see this on all kinds of assets. The combined hex price, EHEX, ETC, ETH, FTM, like all these other charts that are valuable. Look at how much hex blew out the red line in its first cycle.
And look how low it went after.
This is ETH. So ETH, but this is ETH from 2018. So this isn't ETH going all the way back. But ETH again, it also topped. Can you throw the price chart on this one? Look right there on that first top. So, like if you're not greedy and you want to make money in this market, you could literally just follow this chart and sell and do pretty damn well for yourself. Buy the purple line on the lows, sell the purple line on the highs. You don't have to watch the price chart. You just watch the GRM.
Yeah. Pi cycle top indicator? Is that what it is? That's done pretty well too.
Oh, Pi Cycle's nailed it every time. I was on a stream with Whales Only saying Pi Cycle top is hitting right now, but I think it's going to go higher. But I'm not sure, but I think it's going to go higher. And then, of course, it called the top
right
on stream.
Right. That's crazy.
It's like, don't ignore the data, right?
Yeah, essentially it is the same indicator. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All righty. How long have we been going? Hour 20? We could probably go a lot longer because there's so much information out there right now. I did want to touch on the MakerDAO contract on Pulse Chain a little bit. Maybe that'd be interesting.
Yeah, do it. I don't know that much about it, so please.
Okay. So, Rags, how about this? Rags has kind of been talking to me in the back about this situation that's been going on with PDI. I've talked to a couple guys in the Sonny's Pub about this. I think you also did your own research by digging into Sonny's Pub. Yeah. There's some helpful cats over there that are trying to expose this message. And the message is that there's SAC wallets, or allegedly that there's activity connected to SAC wallets or OA wallets that's interacting with the MakerDAO contract. The only way you'd know this is if you know which addresses to look at, how to look through the chain and find these kind of activities occurring. But what we're seeing now is that those addresses are collateralizing the vaults with PUSDC and PDI. Please don't go buy them up right now. I still want to put another buy-in before this before the end of the day, so please do not go buy those up. Those are high risk plays, but the data is saying that there's something going on here. Now, I would like to see if Rags, what's your thoughts on this whole thing? Where do you think it's going? Do you think there's any legitimacy to this? I got to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, so it's kind of wild, right? Because there's been some activity connected with the PMaker contracts before Pulse Chain, right after Pulse Chain, and this entire time. Now, the overall narrative here is that Richard or somebody who has access to the original SAC wallets has some wallets that have a couple degrees of separation that are interacting with these things. And here recently, the Maker Vault address, which is a 2199 address, it has about 2.1 billion worth of PUSDC in there on the PMaker side, which is also 3 million, as well as 231 million on the Maker side on ETH. So what this basically says is over the past 20 days or so, there's about $2 million of PUSDC that's being put into the Maker contract. People want to say that there's a stable coin play here that's happening. People also might want to say, this is, I think you and I talked about this, AXiS. What's all that ETH going to do? What's it going to be used for? Is this a way to collateralize some of these PRC20 stable coins and create a situation where there actually is a mechanism to be able to keep a peg or to push it up to $1? And there's been a lot of pushback from people in the community that say that it's all BS and this and that. But I would say that at this point, what motivation would somebody have that actually has access to this contract to go and start dumping these in there? Could it be an elaborate scheme to deceive everybody? I guess, but there is on-chain evidence that the people who are playing with some of these vaults are connected to the people that launched Pulse Chain. So I think that there's something there.
Yeah.
Don't know what, but
yeah, there's a real possibility that there's secretly an attempt here to bootstrap and restart the Maker protocol, which gives us the ability to collateralize an asset to produce a stablecoin. And the process of bringing that back online hasn't been a simple one. There's evidence of these wallets, these big wallets, connecting in and basically overriding the governance control structure, basically putting up the capital initially to be able to become like the majority shareholder of the system, so that you could actually start to change the code at the code level, maybe not the code level, but reset the system to allow it to pause it so that you could no longer mint PDI. Now it's bringing it back online, and now it's trying to collateralize it. This is my basic understanding of what's going on. And if this is effective, we could see, I don't know how far it could go in terms of, I don't know if the guy that controls the majority of the governance can actually change the underlying assets you can deposit in order to collateralize against them. If that's the case, you could imagine a world where Pulse is able to be deposited into the Maker contract to then use as collateral to produce stable coins, which would be the nail in the coffin and just dominate, make Pulse Chain the best thing that's ever happened, if it works. But other than that, I mean, the only other option you'd have is like the wrapped ETH, right? But think about where this all came from. It was an ETH fork, and then Pulse became ETH. But before that happened, ETH supply got 10,000x. So the wrapped ETH that exists on Pulse Chain, the forked copy, is cloned, so to speak, 1-to-1 with the Pulse supply. So the Pulse supply and the wrapped ETH fork supply should be the same, outside of the fact that there's more Pulse being produced from validators.
Well, and dude, so there's a wallet that's linked to the Pulse SAC wallet, which means that basically, so right before Pulse Chain's launch, They moved 200 million DAI from the PulseX sacrifice, and it was deposited into Maker right before Pulse Chain launched. And that vault got copied over to Pulse Chain. They set up a USDC WETH pool before Pulse Chain's launched too, and they've been using that to refill the PMaker vault with PUSDC, which is, again, there are moves right now that are being made with tremendous amounts of, that were made before even Pulse Chain launched. They were made with tremendous amounts of economic energy that got copied over, and there's still being moves made. So I think it would be worth everybody's time and attention to just do your best to try to understand what's going on here, because it's a very interesting narrative forming in front of our eyes.
And even when you look at the like, here's the PDAI price chart measured in Pulse terms. I mean, this is clearly one of the most bullish charts on Pulse Chain. It's been going under the radar a little bit lately, but that narrative is now picking up steam a little bit here. And if you look at PUSDC, same type of chart structure. I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and the liquidity, it's what, $207,000 worth of Pulse, and it's also V1. So one of the questions that I asked AXiS was like, why would they do V1? Why wouldn't they do V2? Maybe at some point it's going to be put into farms. I don't know what's going to happen here. So like, not only that, there's some other PRC20 pairs, and he talks about PRC20s a lot before Pulse Chain launched. And he talks about it'd be very interesting to see what happens to these PRC20 pairs compared to their ERC20 counterparts and the value. And it's going to be really, so is there something here? Is he going to be able to bootstrap a stable coin that doesn't have the external risk of having to deal with a banking partner or something to that effect, and not having to kowtow to the DAI Foundation to be able to bring all that over, and he's just doing it on his own? When you have hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of value, there are some things that you have access to and some abilities that you have that other people don't. So there might be something here, man.
100%.
Yeah.
It's really amazing that the game of crypto is not in the buying and the selling at the highest level. It's actually in supply control and supply movement, and nothing else. You can make all the economic references you want, but ultimately capturing supply, it's like capture the flag, like literally capturing the supply, moving it into the right places at the right times, and having creative contracts that help you do checkmates on other players in the system. Like the game of DeFi has levels to it, LP and beyond. This is so much more fun and engaging and deeper than buying and selling Bitcoin. Like, this game is evolving, and this guy is like 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody else. It's crazy to watch play out. I'm glad that I'm on that team. Hope you guys are too.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You'll never go out of business being a content creator on this chain. That's for damn sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, let's see. Is there anything else we want to cover? I know it's been a pretty good stream. A lot of cool data. We didn't really look at too many price charts, but somebody asked, like, here's the 14,000X. If you want to look at the 14,000X,
That's all it is.
it's just that. It's just like that little. It's a 14,000X. We'll see you guys at 46 cents sometime next year.
Let's go.
I'll be back then. See you guys. So
Hard
anyway,
close.
guys, it's been yeah, I should have actually. Nah, man. Appreciate you guys for coming on. Hey, Beard, any lasting
Yes.
thoughts? Anything, any insights you may have from the deep web, or from the mind, the deep mind of consciousness that you might want to share?
Man,
Okay.
I think you guys are very smart, and sometimes it's interesting how in different ways, like in how many different ways people's minds can work, and on different wavelengths basically, and every time there's different data that comes to the surface. So it's just beautiful to see. Also, you two talk about all the systems, and with the Bitcoin and just all the data that just came up is just is just a beautiful clockwork of this this universe. Basically, it's just interesting how everything constantly comes together to form one uniform picture, basically. And you can just look at it in so many different ways. I tend to look at it in just very basic, like how's everyone's feeling and how's the statistics going, and then we already know enough, and then you can go into all those details. And I think this stream has been a good example of all the things we can talk about instead of just the one specific small piece of drama that a lot of people tend to focus on. And I would love to bring more of that into this community and to really, show that there's also adults in this space and that we're really here to build something and not just here to scream at one guy who needs to buy us out for some reason. It's been very painful for me to see so many crying babies, really basically literally calling someone daddy and telling the person to save them from
embarrassing.
something. It's just strange, man, because
Cringe.
we're here to develop ourselves, right? We're here to help this world, but most people have forgotten to really take care of themselves first. And it's just painful because he really literally made hacks to help people not be so dependent on the chart and not to be so dependent on these financial things. And yeah, if you read SciVive, it's just about improving yourself. And then I see so much pain, and it's just sad. So I'm happy that people are like us are here, and there's more of us than we even think.
There's
So-
more of us that are positive than those that are negative. The small vocal
Yes.
minority.
But I see it, for example, in my close group of people, the people that don't really listen to me, but to people online, those kind of family members.
Yeah.
It's just all the screaming, it does impact a lot of people in negative ways because their feelings also get tainted by all those comments. And it's just good to start talking more in like the way we do, in more rational ways, in a more constructive manner. And I see us going very far with this.
Yeah, man. I hope that we're gonna see a lot more Rags around these parts.
That would be cool.
Super smart guy. Crispy and Mark are in the boardroom through axisALiVE.com, so they can attest to the kind of quality of information and is shared that is shared in there, and like how far ahead of the curve we are in a lot of ways. And I think Rags would be an awesome addition to that, and we'll see where this all kind of plays out. This is the biggest and best opportunity we're ever going to have in crypto. If there was only one real chance to repeat what Bitcoin did, and Hex did that on its first cycle, and now here we get to replay out Ethereum, and we're doing it in a way that we get to get Uniswap from day one in PulseX, and we have like hundreds, if not thousands, of developers working here. And with any luck, like the Pulse Chain Foundation will succeed in bringing us to tons of centralized exchanges that are high quality, and we'll onboard the next 10 million users into Pulse Chain. Richard will fight back and he will win, and we're going to take this shit over. And we're here to do it, and we're serious about it. And we're deep thinkers. We're here to stay, and it's such a tremendous experience just being a part of this. It's elevated my whole life to a whole nother level. Gave me so much more fulfillment, and given me the group of like-minded family, the tribe that I was always looking for on a professional level. As a younger person, kind of lost in the space, worrying about like how can I ever contest against the Federal Reserve and the broken fractional reserve banking system and all of the conspiracy in the world. And this is a way to fight back through peaceful revolution, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And for everybody in the chat, you set yourself apart when you take the time to take notes, understand the concepts, Just put time in and learn these things. You set yourself apart from the rest of the world. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure AXiS can attest to this and others, that I've been in rooms with people that I probably have no business being in rooms with. People that are very well accomplished in all sorts of industries and all sorts of practices and all sorts of skill sets. And they know nothing about decentralized finance. And I'm the person that understands that. You can be the person that understands that in your peer group, and you spread the knowledge, and you spread this information to them too. And I like what the Beard said. He said, listen, guys, like all this crazy stuff that's going on social media, guys, all that is vapor. It doesn't matter. Just stay focused on learning this stuff. Put effort into it. You're going to screw up a lot. But if you keep going, you're going to get to where you want to go, wherever that is. Just aim high. Very important. So thanks for having me on, AXiS. I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Crispy, man, thanks for everything you do. We'll let your voice rest. And, hey, go check out hexfire.io. Go check out the Rags2Riches network. If you want animated videography done, go check out Proof of Beard's website coming online soon, hopefully. And we'll see you guys in the boardroom. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you guys soon, all right? Peace.